Let's go.
Let's call our special board meeting to order, and I'll ask the treasurer to call the roll.
President Baker.
Present.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Vice President Cole.
Here.
Ms. Gibbs.
Here.
Mr. Ragland.
Here.
And Ms. Reyes. You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. And in honor of School Board Appreciation Month, I'm going to call on our senior member to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Board Member Gibbs, if everyone would be upstanding.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Board Member Gibbs. Now, colleagues, I will ask you to join me in adopting the agenda, and so I will accept a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. You see the agenda before us this evening. I'll ask the treasurer to call the roll.
President Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Vice President Cole.
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs.
Yes.
Mr. Ragland.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I'll ask the Vice President to offer a motion for our consideration.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the board recess into executive session per section 121.22 G1 to consider the appointment, employment, or compensation of a public employee or official.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Treasurer?
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Vice President Cole.
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs.
Yes.
Mr. Ragland.
Yes.
President Baker.
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you, colleagues. The board will now recess into executive session. We will return to these chambers subsequent to our deliberations. Thank you. I'll return from executive session, and I'd like to offer a resolution for your consideration. Whereas there is a vacancy on the Columbus City Schools Board of Education, and whereas Section 3313.11 of the Ohio Revised Code and Board Bylaw 0145 give the board the authority to appoint an individual to fill an expired term, and whereas the board has received notices of interest from individuals interested in serving the unexpired term, and whereas Board Bylaw 0145 states that the board may interview candidates to ascertain their qualifications, and whereas the Board of Education selected 6 individuals to interview at its meeting on January 8th, 2019, and whereas the board has recently completed its interviews, now therefore be it resolved that the Columbus City Schools Board of Education hereby appoints Jennifer Adair to fill the current vacancy on the Board of Education. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Treasurer, would you mind?
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Vice President Cole.
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs.
Yes.
Mr. Ragland.
Yes.
Ms. Reyes.
Yes.
President Baker.
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you. I want to, well, yes, I do want to thank those in the audience who were applicants for this vacancy. We had six very qualified applicants, and the decision that we've made was not an easy one, obviously. So I want to thank those of you who did participate in the process. And I do believe we have a motion on the table. That is to adjourn. We have a second. And seeing no objection, I'll ask the treasurer to call the roll.
Vice President Cole.
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs.
Yes.
Mr. Ragland.
Yes.
Ms. Reyes.
Yes.
President Baker.
Yes.
And Mr. Brown.
Yes.
And that motion carries.
Colleagues, we stand adjourned. I thank you for your service. Have a good evening.